Hi guys. The purpose of this video is to show those of you who are working on the Crucible website project how to build that website. And I have a template and things set up for you. I should be popping up in one of the corners of your screens. So if you don't see a video, I might have to redo this thing. But if you start from your Google page and you click on your Google Apps up in the corner, under those apps, you should see a Sites feature. If it doesn't pop up in your primary sites, because I've used it quite often, you can hit More and it should be down there somewhere. But it's this icon right here. In Google Sites, Google had a previous version of this which did not work well, but they have updated this, and that's the new Google Sites. So if you click there, you should see your page somewhere because I've shared it with you. It will probably be your only one. In this case, I can see all the sites that I've created. I can see the English 11 site that you've looked at for samples already, sites we did last spring for book club stuff. And I can see the site that I've set up for each one of you. And I can also see my practice site, which I have open over here. So this is what you will see. Your names will be here. Google has some features they do very, very well and some features that are a little frustrating. But basically, their goal is to make website creation as simple as possible. Are there other website tools we could use, such as my website is a Weebly site? Yes. But for what we're doing, the school owns access to this, so we have built-in privacy rights. And the tools here are very, very simple. So if you can use this, then you can transfer those skills to creating other websites in the future. One of the first things you'll want to do is title your page. And if you click on the area where I have your names, this defaults to a title setting. So for many of you, the website project calls it the Salem Scribe or the Salem Reporter. That's fine. If you want to come up with something more clever, that's fine as well. A lot of website titles or newspaper titles include alliteration. So I'm just going to keep with the Salem Scribe. And then that text box stays there. If I want to add in another text box because your name should be underneath, I can, on the right-hand side of your page, there's features to pop in text boxes, images, embed codes, and items from Drive. So what I just did is I clicked text box and it put one onto the page. So now I have two of them there. And it shows up at first with a blue box. If you look closely at this when you select it, you will see that there's a little ... thing over here. And then there's one on top as well if you hover over it. And when you hover over those things, you get the cursor I'm getting now with the 4 arrows on it. And that means that if you click down on it, you can move it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up directly underneath that header. And what it just did for me was it combined those two text boxes so that they're the same size and width. But this one is in normal text. So what I want to do is I want to type my reporter's names there. And I would probably center this since the features pop up, just because it'll look a little bit nicer. So whatever your names are. Since this website will get published for the public, I discourage you from putting your last names on them. I would put first name, last initial, just for privacy reasons. And then most newspapers or websites have a specific date for their site or for their newspaper edition. So your paper is coming out during the play. The play goes from the spring of 1692 into winter, and then a little bit into the spring of 1693. So you would choose the proper date range for yours. So it would probably be a spring day in 1693 or a late fall day in 1692, whichever. You'll have to look at the context of the articles you've written to determine that. So if I click off of that, that's what we currently look like in our header. Up here it should say site name, and I'm just going to put Crucible project up there for now. Typically that's taken care of because I've titled your file for you. Students often ask, well, do I have to make this header this ugly gray thing? Well, no, you don't. You can modify that. And when you click on the header, you have options to change image and to change the header type. If you click on header type, you can choose the size of your header and what's included there. You can make this into a cover thing. I don't think that would be necessary for what we are currently doing. You also have the option to change the image behind it. So you can upload one or select one. And students in the past have done this. You will see this on lots of different things they've done in the past. And I'm just going to go find out what I have in my downloads folder. This is an image that I used on your quizzes. It wouldn't qualify for your stuff because it's from an external source. And legally, I wouldn't be allowed to use that if I were publishing this site. But what you would probably do, say that you did have your artwork. You could take a photo of your artwork or scan it in and then put it back there. But ideally, we would want to use an original image. So for example, this is an image of my yearbook students. This is an image of the last night's concert. I could select one of those and put it behind there. And you can see that Google adjusts that image for readability already. But what they don't let you do is really adjust how it sits within that. It's a little limiting that way. If you want it in black and white, you need to convert it to black and white first. If you want to crop it to a specific place, you probably have to take care of that first. Because remember, Google Sites is trying to keep things very, very simple. So now that you have a title on there, the primary thing you need to include, I'm going to delete this so we can start from scratch. The primary thing that you need to include on your newspaper or your website are the articles, because the articles are what make it happen. And to do that, we're going to go back up here and hit the text box item. And once again, that's how you put in a text box. I just go up here and click on it and it pops up here. And within this text box, if I have an article ready to go, I can copy and paste it in there. I guess I should have had one ready to go. Let me pull up this. So this is the first part of your assignment. I'm going to use that as a sample. And I copy and paste that in there. It keeps it in the most straightforward text possible, but there are some things you should do. For example, this is the title of my newspaper article. Right now it kept it in bold, but you can take this title and where it says normal text, you can change that to a title so that we know that that's the title of the article. Underneath it, it will automatically move it to normal text, but you want a byline there, or maybe you want a subheading there. So newspaper option, maybe your article is going to be something about John Proctor spills all. And then my subheadline might be, find out just what was said in Monday's court session. And then the article goes on to explain what John Proctor reveals regarding Abigail Williams. But I need the byline there. So in normal text would be Okay, so we're going to pick up once again on the Crucible website project. Right now we are discussing how to put in and format your articles. So I copy and pasted a sample article in, and we have a title, and we discussed that you could put in a subtitle or a subheading with it. And we were just finishing up that we need to know who wrote this article, especially because each one of you are assigned to write at least one article. For privacy purposes, I would prefer to not have you type your last name on there. So I'm just typing Susie Q. She's my sample person. So this is my article. And right now it goes all the way across this page. It looks fairly decent, nice and crisp. But I don't need to make it do that. Say that I have a photo I want to put in next to this. Well, what I can do, I clicked on this article, and when I do that, I grabbed the side. These little blue dots pop up on the side, and I grabbed one of those. And when I start moving it, you can see that guidelines come up. And that helps me keep things aligned in a workable way. So I can move this so it's only taking up part of the space. And that means that I can put an image that is related to this article in this space here. And that's what I can reserve the space for. How I would do that, I would go up to Images on the right-hand side if I have it on my computer, or if I have an image on Google Drive. For instance, I have all of the yearbook photos backed up on Google Drive. So I would probably prefer to go into From Drive, since that's where I have thousands of photos. And I can find a photo, choose it, and then I just hit Insert. And that's how it works if you have a photo already in Google Drive. Apparently this one is of the robotics class. You can see that it defaulted to putting underneath. All I have to do is grab that photo and put it up where I want it to be, and it will move it for me. If I had a photo on my downloads on the hard drive of my computer, then I would hit the Images button and I would upload or select from there, the same way you saw me do this. For instance, this is a yearbook photo when we were learning camera strategies, and it did the same thing. And now I can move that photo over. And I can resize those photos. And when I resize that, it automatically resizes the thing next to it. Ideally, I have an article next to a photo and they're related things. Ideally, I would have a caption with this photo. And to do that, I would hit text box, and it pops up at the bottom of whatever I have in there. And I can grab it and bump it up against the photo, and it resizes it to match the same width. And now I can put in a caption there. When you're writing captions, you don't want to be obvious with them. For instance, in this caption, we can see that it's Mr. Fred working with a student. So we don't want to say, in this photo, Mr. Fredrickson works with a student in robotics class. No, we want to provide some additional insights to it. I don't remember this student's name. It might be Hunter. So Mr. Fredrickson, whose name I just misspelled, and Hunter work to solve the problem of whatever that happens to be, which you can't tell from the photo. So you're giving additional insight. So if this were a photo of, say, John and Elizabeth Proctor standing there, then I would want to know that they are standing there for the purpose of giving testimony to Judge Danforth, who I might not see in the photo, and so on and so forth. Other thing, if you click on the photo, you get certain very basic features. You get a crop feature, and if I click on that, I can make it bigger to zoom in, and that tends to make it more obvious what I'm emphasizing in the photo. I have an uncrop, which will put it back to what it was. I can make this photo link to another website, which is not a feature you need to use, or I can just simply delete it. The add alternative text will move this stuff around, so you can change that. But that's how photos and basic article insertion works. I'm going to delete this one for now. Now, you may have noticed, the next thing we're going to review is, you may have noticed that when I'm clicking in this stuff, this little section is highlighted. That's what we're going to discuss next. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you in creating your Crucible project website is how you can use different features of the page. We've already discussed how to insert your articles and how to insert your images. Well, you can do other things with it, including have separate page parts and insert a video, which will be a requirement. So when I select anything here, this section of the page is a little bit separate from the bottom and a little bit separate from the top. If you hover over that, on the left-hand side, you can have the option of setting that part of the page apart a little differently from the other areas of the page. And you may have noticed this if you've looked at the examples. So you can do that by changing the section style. And all that really does is change the background and the fonts so that it pops off the page a little bit more at you. I don't think it's necessary. If you had a really long, really in-depth page with several complex parts of it, then you would be more likely to use that. But that's not what we have going on here. So regular is fine. You don't have to do anything fancy with it. If you insert an image, because people are going to ask, so I might as well show you, what it will do is put that image as a background, and it will kind of get really busy. And suddenly you can see the trouble. It's hard to read over top of it. There's just too much going on the page. So I do not recommend doing that. White is fine. The next thing we want to do is talk about how to insert your video. To do that, there are two ways. There's an embed code function, and there's also the YouTube function. Some of you are probably going to use iMovie to make your video, and some of you might take video and upload it to WeVideo and use their free trial, which works very, very well. I had students last year use both. I'm going to show you the YouTube route. Whether you're using WeVideo or iMovie, you will probably need to upload it to YouTube in order to work on this particular site because it is a Google site, and Google plays best with other Google products. So how this works is you go down to YouTube, and in this case, you can do a search for it, or you can upload to it. If you have uploaded to YouTube already, like I have an entire YouTube channel of videos I have created and videos I have tagged that would be useful for my English class. So for what you had to do, you had to create an original video. So let me select one of my original videos for you. Here we go. These are all the guest speakers we had last year. So this is a video from last year's English class, one of our speakers. And you go into share on that video, and you can get that website. And I'm just going to copy that and take it over here and type in my video URL, and it should pop up. That's the easiest way to do that, even if you own your own video. And I'm going to select that, and it pops it directly into the website at this default size. If that is the most prominent, most important thing on your page, feel free to make it a little bit bigger. You don't want to distort it. and it shouldn't really let you distort it too much. But you want it to be a viewable size, but not a distracting size. And you can decide is this the most important thing on your website? Then maybe you want to have it above those articles. Maybe you want to have it below the articles. That's a choice you're going to need to make. Maybe you want to have it next to an article that it is related to. Any of those things. And it will play the video within the site once the site is published. You can also go into settings and say that, what do you want to do? You have some specific features there. Do you want to allow people to play it in full screen? You can even choose different options here. So I'm going to click off of that. If you were to use an embed code, embed codes can be used for different things. And in theory, there's lots and lots of different features out on the internet that you can embed into different sites. And you would click on it, and you could go over to your YouTube video and get the embed code from it. You might have to take a different route to get it. Embed, right there, I missed it. And you would take this information. And using an embed code, you can be more specific with it. You can tell it to start at a specific spot. And you would simply enter that embed code. And you can see the problem I'm having right away. It says the URL isn't valid. And what I've noticed, oh, I'm sorry, it's because I entered it in the wrong spot. What I've noticed is some things play well with Google and some don't. Google owns YouTube, so it should play well with this. And it did, but you can see that it formatted it a little bit differently based on the embed code settings. You have other features here. For instance, if you wanted to put in a survey on your website, you could insert a Google form onto your site. A small one could go here if you had a form set up. For instance, I would have that form set up in advance. I'd click on it, I'd hit insert. It would insert the form here, and I could resize that to whatever I thought was best to make it work. And I can move that around to different areas of the website. I could put in a chart if I had a chart ready to go. I think the maps feature is interesting. It will not do a map from 1692, but you could look at Salem, Massachusetts now and put that in. It says that this feature is in development purposes. So that means to expect some problems with it. But you could drop pins on a map and insert it in if it's appropriate for the articles you're putting in next to it. So those are some of the features. And once again, you would move those around to what works best. And that's pretty much it. You do not currently have permission to publish your site, but when it's finished, we're going to hit the publish button. And that will make it available to anybody within the @RTR Schools system. What you should do, this little button up on top, it looks like an eye. This is your preview button. If you click on that, it shows you what the published version of the website will look like without the Powered by Screencastify, because that's what I'm using to record. So that's when people go to your website, that's what the final product is going to look like for them. And you'll see exactly what it is. When you finish with your site, it should be polished, it should look nice, it should be easy to read, and a complete work. Remember to review your assignment to make sure that you are hitting all the areas for your scoring rubric and that you are getting A's in each one of those areas. That's the goal. We want to see that you are really showing us what you know about the play and making it accessible to others. So that's how Google Sites works, and I hope you enjoy it like I do.